Perhaps this evening you find yourself weary, carrying burdens that seem too heavy for your shoulders to bear. Your mind races with concerns that refuse to quiet, and your heart aches with struggles that feel overwhelming in the silence of the night. But what if I told you that tonight could be different? What if the very act of closing your eyes could become a doorway to something extraordinary? Tonight, we're going to explore something that transforms the way millions of people experience rest. This isn't about counting sheep or following the latest sleep trends. This is about understanding how divine healing can meet you in the most vulnerable moments of your day, when your defenses are down and your spirit is open to receive what it truly needs. Before we dive deep into this journey together, let me share something with you. Over the past decade, I've witnessed countless individuals discover that their greatest breakthrough didn't happen during their waking hours of struggle and effort. Instead, it happened when they learned to surrender their pain, their worries, and their deepest needs to the one who never sleeps, who watches over them through every hour of darkness. You see, sleep isn't just a biological necessity. It's a sacred space where the supernatural meets the natural, where healing doesn't just touch your body but reaches into the deepest corners of your soul. And tonight, I want you to understand exactly how this works and why it could change everything about the way you approach rest. Think about the last time you went to bed truly at peace. Not just tired, but genuinely peaceful. For many of us, that memory feels distant, almost foreign. We've grown accustomed to lying down with racing thoughts, tossing and turning with anxiety, or waking up feeling like we never truly rested at all. But what if this pattern isn't just normal, inevitable part of life? What if there's something profoundly different available to you? The human body performs incredible work during sleep. Your cells regenerate, your immune system strengthens, and your mind processes the experiences of the day. But there's another dimension of restoration happening that science is only beginning to touch. It's the dimension where your spirit connects with the divine, where healing flows not just through your physical being, but through every area of your life that needs restoration. I want you to imagine for a moment what it would feel like to lay your head on your pillow tonight, knowing with absolute certainty that you are not alone in your struggles. Picture yourself releasing every worry, every fear, every burden into hands that are infinitely capable of carrying what you cannot. Envision your sleep becoming a sanctuary where divine love surrounds you like a warm embrace, where healing flows through your dreams, and where you wake up genuinely renewed. This isn't wishful thinking or positive psychology. This is about tapping into a reality that exists beyond what our physical senses can perceive. It's about understanding that the same power that speaks stars into existence, that causes the sun to rise each morning, that orchestrates the intricate dance of life itself, is intimately concerned with your rest, your peace, and your healing. But here's what makes tonight different from every other night you've tried to find peace. Most of us approach sleep as something we do alone. We close our bedroom doors, turn off the lights, and attempt to quiet our minds through sheer willpower. We treat rest as a solo endeavor, battling our thoughts and concerns in isolation. Yet, what if the key to transformative sleep isn't found in what we do alone, but in recognizing the presence that's already there with us? Throughout history, people have discovered that their most profound experiences of healing and breakthrough often came during the quiet hours when the world around them slept. It's in these moments of vulnerability, when we're not performing or striving or trying to maintain control, that we become most receptive to the kind of healing that goes beyond what any medicine or therapy can provide. Tonight, I'm going to walk you through understanding how to position your heart, your mind, and your spirit to receive this kind of supernatural rest. We'll explore why some people wake up refreshed and renewed, while others wake up feeling more burdened than when they went to sleep. We'll uncover the difference between simply resting your body and allowing your entire being to be restored. The first thing you need to understand is that healing sleep begins long before your head touches the pillow. It starts with a shift in perspective about what sleep actually is. Most of us view sleep as the end of our day, the period when we shut down until morning demands our attention again. But what if sleep is actually the beginning of something profound? What if those 8 hours aren't just recovery time, but sacred hours when divine love can work in ways that our busy, distracted days often don't allow? Consider how differently you might prepare for sleep if you understood it as an appointment with healing itself. Instead of scrolling through your phone until your eyes grow heavy, instead of replaying the day's stresses or tomorrow's anxieties, you would prepare your heart to receive something beautiful, You would approach your bedroom as a sanctuary, your pillow as an altar, and your rest as an act of faith, but preparation is only the beginning. The real transformation happens when you understand how to release control and invite divine presence into your rest. This isn't about perfect prayers or religious formulas. It's about the simple, profound act of acknowledging that you don't have to carry everything alone, that there are burdens you were never meant to bear by yourself. Think about a small child who falls asleep in their parents' arms. There's no anxiety about whether they'll be safe, no worry about what tomorrow might bring. They rest completely because they trust completely. They sleep peacefully because they know they are held by someone who loves them and will watch over them through the night. This is the kind of trust that opens the door to healing rest. Yet many of us have forgotten how to rest with this kind of trust. We've become so accustomed to self-reliance, so used to carrying our own burdens, that we've lost the ability to truly surrender our concerns and allow ourselves to be held. We lie in bed with muscles tense from carrying emotional weight, with minds that refuse to quiet because we believe it's up to us to solve every problem and face every challenge. But tonight can be different. Tonight you can remember what it feels like to be truly held, truly watched over, truly cared for by a love that never grows weary. You can rediscover what it means to rest, not just your body, but your mind, your heart, and your spirit, in the presence of one who promises to give rest to all who are heavy laden. The beautiful truth is that this kind of rest doesn't require you to have everything figured out. You don't need to resolve every problem or heal every hurt before you can experience divine healing in your sleep. In fact, it's often in our weakest, most vulnerable moments that we become most open to receiving what we truly need. When you understand this, everything changes. Your bedroom becomes more than just a place to sleep. It becomes a meeting place with the divine. Your pillow becomes more than just a place to rest your head. It becomes a place to lay down your burdens. Your sleep becomes more than just physical recovery. It becomes an invitation for supernatural healing to touch every area of your life that needs restoration. As we continue on this journey together, I want you to keep something in mind. The healing that meets you in sleep isn't limited to physical ailments. It reaches into broken relationships, financial stress, emotional wounds, and spiritual emptiness. It touches the places in your life where you've been trying so hard to create change through your own effort, and it offers a different way forward. This is about discovering that some of your greatest victories won't come through harder work or better strategies, but through learning to rest in the presence of one who is already working on your behalf. It's about understanding that while you sleep, divine love is orchestrating solutions, opening doors, healing wounds, and preparing pathways that you could never create through your own strength. But here's where most people miss the profound truth about healing sleep. They think it's something that happens to them passively, like a lucky accident that some people experience and others don't. They believe that peaceful, restorative sleep is reserved for those who have fewer problems, less stress, or naturally calm personalities. This couldn't be further from the truth. The reality is that healing sleep is available to anyone who understands how to create the conditions for it. It's not about having a perfect life or being free from troubles. Some of the most powerful experiences of divine healing in sleep have come to people in their darkest seasons when everything seemed to be falling apart around them. I remember speaking with a woman who had been battling chronic pain for years. She had tried every medical treatment, every therapy, every natural remedy she could find. Her nights had become a cycle of tossing and turning, punctuated by brief moments of fitful rest. She was exhausted, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. She felt like she was fighting a battle she could never win. But then something shifted. She began to approach her sleep differently. Instead of lying in bed focused on her pain, dreading another sleepless night, she started surrendering her suffering to divine love. She would whisper simple prayers, not asking for specific outcomes, but simply acknowledging that she was held by a love greater than her pain. Within weeks, something remarkable began to happen. Her sleep deepened, her pain levels decreased. But more than that, she began to wake up with a sense of hope she hadn't felt in years. She discovered that healing wasn't just touching her body during sleep. It was restoring her faith, her joy, and her sense of purpose. This is what I want you to understand tonight. Healing sleep isn't just about feeling better physically when you wake up, though that often happens. It's about allowing every dimension of your being to be touched by divine love while you rest. It's about waking up not just refreshed, but renewed in ways that go far beyond what a good night's sleep typically provides. Now, let me share with you something that will change how you think about the struggles that keep you awake at night. Those racing thoughts, those worries that seem to intensify in the darkness, those fears that whisper to you when everything is quiet, they're not just random mental activity. They're often the very areas where healing wants to meet you most deeply. Think about it this way. During the day, we're distracted by activity, by noise, by the constant demands of life. Our pain, our fears, our deepest needs often get pushed beneath the surface because we're too busy to fully acknowledge them. But at night, in the quiet, these things rise to the surface. And while this can feel overwhelming, it's actually an invitation. Your restless mind isn't your enemy. Those concerns that won't let you sleep aren't proof that you're broken or that peace is impossible for you. They're indicators pointing you toward the very areas where divine healing wants to do its deepest work. When you begin to see your nighttime struggles this way, everything changes. Instead of fighting your worried thoughts, you can surrender them. Instead of trying to force your mind to be quiet, you can invite divine peace to quiet what you cannot. Instead of feeling alone with your fears, you can rest in the knowledge that perfect love is present with you, ready to cast out every fear that tries to steal your peace. But surrender isn't passive resignation. It's not giving up or accepting that things will never change. True surrender is an act of faith. It's releasing your grip on problems you cannot solve and trusting them to hands that are infinitely capable. It's choosing to rest in divine love rather than wrestle with circumstances you cannot control. Here's what this looks like practically. When you lay down tonight and those familiar worries begin to surface, instead of tensing up and trying to push them away, you can acknowledge them and then consciously place them into divine care. You can speak to them not with fear but with faith. I see you worry about my finances, but I'm placing this concern into hands that can handle what I cannot. I see you fear about my relationships, but I'm trusting this situation to a love that knows how to heal what seems impossible. This isn't about denying real problems or pretending everything is fine when it isn't. It's about recognizing that your problems don't have to be solved by you alone. In your own strength, through your own wisdom, there's a partnership available to you, a collaboration with divine love that can work in your life while you sleep. And here's something beautiful that happens when you begin to rest this way. Your sleep becomes prayer. Not formal religious prayer that requires perfect words, but the kind of prayer that happens when your whole being relaxes into divine love. Your breathing becomes worship. Your rest becomes an offering. Your dreams become a canvas where healing can paint new possibilities into your life. Some of you might be thinking, this sounds too good to be true. If healing in sleep is real, why haven't I experienced it? Why do I still wake up tired and burdened? These are valid questions, and the answer isn't that you're doing something wrong or that you lack faith. Often it's simply that no one has taught you how to position your heart to receive what's already available to you. Let me explain it this way. Imagine you're in a room filled with radio waves, music, news, conversations, all broadcasting simultaneously. If you don't have a radio, or if your radio isn't tuned to the right frequency, you won't hear any of it. The broadcasts are there, the signals are present, but you're not positioned to receive them. Divine healing in sleep is similar. The love, the peace, the restoration you need is always broadcasting, always available. But if your heart isn't tuned to receive it, if your mind is fixed on frequencies of worry and fear, you might not experience what's already there for you. This is why preparation matters so much. It's not about earning divine love or proving yourself worthy of healing. You already are worthy simply because you exist. Preparation is about tuning your heart to receive what love wants to give you. It's about creating space in your inner life for healing to take root and flourish. Tonight, as you prepare for sleep, I want you to think about your heart as a garden. Throughout the day, all kinds of seeds have been planted there. Seeds of worry from stressful situations, seeds of fear from uncertain circumstances, seeds of hurt from difficult relationships. If you go to sleep without tending this garden, those seeds will grow in the darkness, producing dreams filled with anxiety and mornings heavy with dread. But you have the power to choose what grows in the garden of your heart. You can pull up the weeds of worry and plant seeds of trust instead. You can remove the stones of bitterness and prepare fertile ground for forgiveness to bloom. You can water your heart with gratitude and watch hope spring up where despair once took root. This isn't positive thinking or mental manipulation. This is heart cultivation. This is preparing your inner life to receive the kind of healing that transforms not just your sleep, but your entire existence. When you tend the garden of your heart before sleep, you create conditions where divine love can work in ways that will amaze you. And here's what happens when you begin to tend your heart's garden with intentionality. As you release each worry, as you surrender each fear, you're not just clearing mental space, you're creating room for something extraordinary to take root. You're making space for divine love to plant seeds of healing that will grow while you sleep, sprouting into renewed strength, fresh perspective, and supernatural peace that you'll discover when morning comes. But let me tell you about the most profound aspect of healing sleep that most people never discover. It's not just about what happens while you're unconscious. The transformation begins the moment you change your approach to bedtime itself. When you start viewing those evening hours as preparation for an encounter with divine love, everything shifts. Think about how you currently end your day. Do you collapse into bed exhausted, your mind still churning with unfinished business? Do you scroll through your phone until your eyes burn, filling your thoughts with the chaos of social media or news that leaves you feeling more unsettled? Do you replay conversations, rehearse tomorrow's challenges, or lie there cataloging everything that went wrong? What if instead you began to see those final hours of your day as sacred preparation time? What if you treated the transition into sleep with the same reverence you might give to entering a holy place? This shift in perspective creates a completely different foundation for the rest that follows. Consider this. When you're invited to meet someone important, someone you respect and love, you don't show up rushed and distracted. You prepare yourself. You clear your schedule, quiet your mind, and focus your attention on the encounter ahead. The same principle applies to meeting divine love in your sleep. This preparation doesn't require elaborate rituals or perfect conditions. It's about creating moments of intentional transition. It might be as simple as taking 3 deep breaths and acknowledging that you're not facing the night alone. It could be spending a few minutes in gratitude, not for everything being perfect, but for the love that remains constant, even when everything feels uncertain. Some people find that gentle music helps create this sacred space. Others prefer silence. Some light a candle and watch the flame flicker as they release the day's concerns. Others simply sit quietly and feel their heartbeat, remembering that each beat is sustained by a love that never grows weary. There's no right or wrong way to prepare your heart. There's only your way, the way that helps you remember you are deeply loved and carefully watched over. But here's where this preparation becomes truly powerful. As you create this sacred space, you're not just changing your environment, you're changing your expectation. Instead of dreading another restless night, you begin to anticipate what divine love might want to do in your life while you sleep. Instead of focusing on your problems, you start focusing on the one who specializes in impossible situations. This shift in expectation is like opening a door that's been closed for far too long. Suddenly, you're not just hoping to get through the night. You're expecting to encounter healing, restoration, and renewal in ways you may never have imagined possible. You're positioning yourself to receive not just rest for your body, but refreshment for your soul. Now, let me share something with you about the nature of divine healing that will help you understand why sleep is such a perfect time for breakthrough to occur. During our waking hours, we often function from a place of self-reliance. We problem solve, strategize, and work hard to create the changes we want to see. There's nothing wrong with this, but it can sometimes create a barrier to receiving the kind of help that comes through surrender rather than effort. Sleep, by its very nature, requires surrender. You cannot force yourself to sleep through willpower alone. You have to let go, release control, and trust your body to do what it was designed to do. This natural surrender creates the perfect conditions for divine love to work in ways that our controlling, striving minds often resist during the day. When you sleep, your logical mind steps aside. Your defenses relax. Your heart becomes more receptive. It's as if the barriers that usually separate you from supernatural intervention become thin and permeable. In this state of openness, healing can reach places in your life that have been closed off, touch wounds that have been protected, and bring restoration to areas where you've been trying so hard to create change through your own effort. This is why some people wake up with solutions to problems they'd been wrestling with for months. It's why others find that relationships begin to heal, financial provision appears, or physical symptoms improve after nights of surrendered sleep. It's not that divine love isn't always working, but that in sleep, we get out of our own way long enough for that work to become evident. But let me address something that might be stirring in your heart right now. You might be thinking, I've prayed before. I've asked for healing. I've tried to surrender my problems. Nothing changed. Why would tonight be any different? This is one of the most honest questions you could ask, and it deserves an honest answer. Sometimes the healing we receive isn't the healing we expected. We pray for circumstances to change, and instead, we receive strength to endure them. We ask for problems to disappear, and instead, we discover wisdom to navigate them. We want immediate solutions, and instead we're given peace in the midst of ongoing challenges. This doesn't mean our prayers weren't heard, or that divine love isn't working. It means that perfect love sees what we need even more clearly than we do. The woman I mentioned earlier who battled chronic pain didn't wake up one morning completely healed, though her physical symptoms did improve significantly over time. What she received first was something even more precious, the ability to rest peacefully despite her pain. She discovered that her suffering didn't have to steal her sleep, her joy, or her sense of purpose. She learned that she could be held by divine love, even in the midst of physical discomfort. This is often how healing works in sleep. It begins with peace. It starts with the deep soul-level knowing that you are not abandoned, not forgotten, not left to face your struggles alone. From this foundation of peace, other forms of healing begin to unfold, sometimes quickly, sometimes gradually, but always in perfect timing. Tonight, I want you to release any pressure to experience healing in a specific way or timeline. Instead, simply open your heart to receive exactly what you need and when you need it. Rest divine love wants to give you. Trust that perfect love knows in the confidence that your sleep is not just recovery time, but sacred time when supernatural work can be done in your life. As you begin to embrace this understanding, you'll notice changes that go far beyond better sleep. You'll start to approach challenges differently during the day because you know that solutions can come while you rest. You'll worry less about problems you cannot solve because you've learned to place them in capable hands before you sleep. You'll wake up with fresh perspective, renewed strength, and sometimes clear direction about steps to take. But perhaps most importantly, you'll begin to experience the profound peace that comes from knowing you are deeply loved, carefully watched over, and never alone. This peace doesn't depend on your circumstances being perfect or your problems being solved. It flows from the unshakable truth that divine love is with you through every season, every struggle, and every night. Here's something beautiful that happens as you continue to experience healing in your sleep. It begins to transform your relationship with rest itself. Sleep stops being something you do because you have to, and becomes something you look forward to because you know it's an appointment with love. Your bedroom becomes a sanctuary, not just a place to collapse at the end of a hard day. You'll find yourself approaching bedtime with anticipation rather than dread. Instead of lying awake worrying about tomorrow, you'll rest in confidence that divine love is already preparing the way ahead of you. Instead of waking up anxious about the day's challenges, you'll rise with the quiet assurance that you don't have to face anything alone. This transformation doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't require you to be perfect. Some nights you'll surrender your worries completely and sleep like a child. Other nights anxiety might try to creep back in, and you'll need to gently redirect your thoughts toward trust. Both experiences are normal and part of the journey toward deeper rest. What matters is not perfection but direction. Each time you choose to surrender rather than worry, each time you invite divine love into your rest rather than wrestling with your problems alone, you're creating new pathways in your heart and mind. You're training yourself to receive the healing that's always available to you. And here's something wonderful about this process. As you experience healing in your own sleep, you become a source of peace for others. Your family notices that you're more patient, more present, more at peace. Your co-workers observe that you handle stress differently. Your friends see that you have a stability that doesn't depend on everything going right. You become living proof that there's another way to navigate life's challenges. You demonstrate that it's possible to face uncertainty with peace, to carry responsibilities without being crushed by them, to encounter difficulties without losing hope. This is one of the most beautiful gifts of learning to rest in divine love. It not only transforms your own life but creates ripples of healing that touch everyone around you. Tonight, as you prepare to sleep, remember that you're not just ending another day. You're opening yourself to an encounter with perfect love. You're creating space for healing, to work in ways that your striving mind could never orchestrate. You're positioning yourself to receive restoration that goes far beyond what ordinary rest can provide. The invitation is simple but profound. Release your grip on the problems you cannot solve, surrender your worries to hands that can carry what you cannot, and rest in the absolute certainty that you are held by a love that never sleeps, never grows weary, and never stops working on your behalf. As we continue to explore how divine healing meets you in sleep, I want you to understand something crucial about the process of surrender. Many people think surrender means giving up, becoming passive, or accepting defeat, but true surrender is actually one of the most powerful acts you can perform. It's choosing to align yourself with a love that's infinitely more capable than your own efforts. When you surrender your concerns before sleep, you're not abandoning responsibility or giving up on solutions. You're acknowledging that some battles are too big for you to fight alone, some wounds too deep for you to heal by yourself, some situations too complex for your limited perspective to fully understand. You're choosing to partner with divine wisdom rather than relying solely on your own understanding. This partnership doesn't diminish your value or importance, it actually elevates it. You become a co-creator with divine love, someone who does their part while trusting perfect wisdom to do what only perfect wisdom can do. You act where action is needed, and rest where rest is required. You work during the day and surrender at night, creating a beautiful rhythm of effort and trust that allows both human responsibility and divine intervention to flourish. Think about how this changes everything about the way you carry your burdens. Instead of feeling like every problem rests entirely on your shoulders, you recognize that you're part of a team. The heavy lifting, the impossible situations, the outcomes you cannot control, these belong to divine love. Your part is to be faithful with what you can do and trust perfect wisdom with what you cannot. This understanding transforms your sleep from a period of unconscious worry into active cooperation with healing. Even while you rest, you're participating in the solution. Even while you sleep, divine love is working with your surrendered heart to create possibilities you could never imagine on your own. But surrender isn't always easy, especially if you've spent years believing that everything depends on your effort, your wisdom, your ability to figure things out. Learning to release control can feel frightening at first. What if nothing happens? What if your problems get worse while you're not actively fighting them? What if surrendering is just another word for giving up? These fears are understandable, but they're based on a fundamental misunderstanding of what divine love is like. Perfect love isn't waiting for you to stop trying so it can ignore your needs. Divine love isn't indifferent to your struggles or unconcerned about your pain. On the contrary, this love is more invested in your well-being than you are, more committed to your healing than you could ever be, more determined to see you flourish than your own heart could dare to hope. When you surrender to this love, you're not releasing your concerns into a void. You're placing them into the hands of one who cares about every detail of your life, who knows the end from the beginning, who specializes in creating beauty from ashes and hope from despair. You're entrusting your needs to a love that never fails, never gives up, and never stops working for your good. This is why surrendering your worries before sleep isn't an act of weakness, but one of profound wisdom. When you lay your head on your pillow and consciously release the day's burdens, you're making space for something extraordinary to unfold. You're creating an opening for divine love to work in ways that your anxious mind could never orchestrate, in timing that your impatient heart might not understand, but in perfect alignment with what your soul truly needs. Let me paint a picture for you of what this surrender looks like in practical terms. Imagine you're carrying a heavy backpack filled with rocks. Each rock represents a worry, a fear, a burden you've been carrying throughout the day. Financial stress, that's a heavy stone. Relationship conflicts, another weighty burden. Health concerns, yet another rock adding to your load. By evening, you're exhausted not just from the day's activities, but from carrying all this weight on your shoulders. Now imagine approaching your bedside and recognizing that you don't have to carry that backpack into your sleep. One by one, you can remove each stone, each burden, and place it beside your bed. Not because these concerns aren't real or important, but because you understand that carrying them through the night won't solve them. In fact, the exhaustion from bearing this weight actually diminishes your ability to handle these challenges effectively. But here's where the metaphor becomes even more beautiful. When you place those burdens down, you're not just setting them aside randomly. You're placing them into hands that are perfectly capable of holding what feels impossible to you. While you sleep, divine love doesn't ignore these concerns. Instead, perfect wisdom begins to work on solutions you couldn't see, opens doors you didn't know existed, and prepares pathways forward that your worried mind could never have conceived. Some mornings you'll wake up and find that a situation that seemed hopeless the night before suddenly has a clear next step. Other mornings you'll discover that your perspective on a problem has shifted completely, allowing you to see possibilities that were invisible when you were consumed with worry. And sometimes you'll simply wake up with a peace about circumstances that haven't changed yet, but you'll know with certainty that you're not walking through them alone. This is the miracle of healing sleep. It's not just that your body recovers from the day's exertions. Your spirit recovers from the day's anxieties. Your mind recovers from the day's overthinking. Your heart recovers from the day's emotional strain. You wake up not just physically rested, but spiritually renewed, emotionally refreshed, and mentally clear. But let me share with you one of the most profound aspects of this healing process that many people never discover. Divine love doesn't just work on the problems you're aware of. While you sleep in surrendered trust, healing touches areas of your life that you didn't even know needed attention. Old wounds that have been buried beneath years of busyness suddenly begin to heal. Patterns of thinking that have limited you for decades start to shift. Dreams and purposes that got lost in the chaos of survival begin to resurface. This is why people who learn to rest in divine love often describe waking up feeling like something has changed, even when they can't quite put their finger on what it is. They have more patience with difficult people. They feel more confident about their future. They're less reactive to stressful situations. They discover creativity they didn't know they possessed. They find themselves drawn to activities and relationships that nurture their soul in ways they hadn't prioritized before. It's as if divine love uses the quiet hours of sleep to perform a kind of spiritual surgery, removing things that have been hindering your growth and strengthening areas that need development. And the beautiful thing about this process is that it happens gently, naturally, without the resistance that conscious change efforts often encounter. Think about how different this is from the way we typically approach personal growth and healing. During our waking hours, we often try to force change through willpower, discipline, and effort. We make lists of habits to break and virtues to develop. We read self-help books, attend seminars, and create elaborate plans for transformation. And while there's nothing wrong with intentional growth, this approach can sometimes create more pressure than progress. But healing that happens during surrendered sleep works differently. It flows from love rather than effort, from grace rather than willpower, from divine wisdom rather than human understanding. It addresses root issues rather than just surface symptoms. It creates lasting change that feels natural rather than forced. This doesn't mean you become passive about growth in other areas of your life. Rather, you discover that when your foundation is built on divine love experienced in rest, all your other efforts become more effective. You have more energy for the changes you want to make, because you're not exhausting yourself trying to carry burdens you were never meant to bear alone. You approach challenges with greater wisdom because you've learned to access guidance that goes beyond your own limited perspective. You persevere through difficulties with more resilience because you know that each night brings an opportunity for renewal and fresh strength. Now I want to address something that might be stirring in your heart as you consider this possibility. You might be wondering, how do I know if I'm truly surrendering, or if working in my sleep, or if I'm just sleeping spiritual is happening? These are honest, I'm just going through the motions. Certain characteristics that distinguish it from mere positive. How can I tell if divine love is really better because I've convinced myself something? Questions that deserve thoughtful answers. True surrender has thinking or wishful hoping. When you genuinely place your burdens into divine care, there's a tangible sense of relief, like setting down a heavy weight you've been carrying. Your breathing naturally deepens. The tension in your shoulders relaxes. Your mind stops racing through endless scenarios and solutions. But perhaps most importantly, true surrender is accompanied by a quiet confidence that transcends your circumstances. You're not denying that problems exist or pretending everything is fine when it isn't. Instead, you have a deep knowing that you're not facing these challenges alone, that perfect love is actively engaged in your situation, and that solutions will unfold in perfect timing. This confidence doesn't depend on seeing immediate results or having all your prayers answered exactly as you hoped. It flows from a growing trust in divine love's character, wisdom, and commitment to your well-being. You begin to recognize that sometimes the healing you receive is different from what you expected, but always exactly what you needed. As for recognizing divine love's work in your sleep, the evidence becomes way you handle apparent in the life during your waking hours. You notice that situations that used to trigger intense anxiety now feel manageable. Problems that once seemed overwhelming appear to have clear next steps. Relationships that were sources of constant stress begin to improve, sometimes without any conscious effort on your part. You find yourself responding to difficulties with patience you didn't know you possessed. You discover strength for challenges that would have previously left you feeling defeated. You wake up some mornings with insights about situations you hadn't been actively thinking about, or with a clear sense of direction about decisions you'd been struggling to make. These changes might be subtle at first, so gradual that you almost miss them. But over time, the transformation becomes undeniable. Family members comment on your increased peace. Friends notice that you seem more centered, more present. Co-workers observe that you handle pressure differently. You yourself recognize that something fundamental has shifted in the way you navigate life's ups and downs. But let me share something crucial about this process that will help you avoid one of the most common mistakes people make when they begin to experience healing in sleep. Sometimes, after a few nights of peaceful rest and renewed mornings, people begin to think they've mastered this approach. They start to believe that they no longer need to consciously surrender their worries because they're sleeping well now. This is like someone who's been taking medicine for a condition, feeling better, and then deciding they no longer need the medication because they're healthy now. The healing sleep isn't a one-time fix that solves all your problems permanently. It's an ongoing relationship with divine love that requires daily surrender, nightly release, and continuous trust. Life will continue to bring new challenges, unexpected difficulties, and seasons of uncertainty. The goal isn't to reach a point where you never have anything to surrender. The goal is to develop such a natural rhythm of releasing your burdens to divine love that surrender becomes as automatic as breathing. Some nights you'll lie down feeling completely at peace, having walked through your day in conscious partnership with divine love. Other nights you'll come to bed carrying heavy burdens that accumulated throughout the day, and you'll need to intentionally release each one before you can rest. Both experiences are normal and necessary parts of growing in trust. What changes over time isn't the need to surrender, but your ability to recognize when you're carrying burdens that don't belong to you. You become more aware of the difference between taking responsibility for what's yours and trying to control what isn't. You develop sensitivity to the weight of worry and the freedom that comes with releasing it. You also begin to understand that surrender isn't something you do perfectly or not at all. It's a practice that deepens over time. Some nights you might only be able to release 90% of your worries, holding on to 10%, because you're not quite ready to trust that particular concern to divine care. That's okay. Divine love works with whatever surrender you're able to offer, and perfect love's patience with your imperfect trust is limitless. As you continue to practice this rhythm of daily surrender and nightly rest, you'll discover something beautiful about the way divine love responds to your trust. The more you release to perfect care, the more evidence you see of that care actively working in your life. The more you experience divine love's faithfulness in small matters, the easier it becomes to trust bigger concerns to that same love. It's like learning to dance with a perfect partner. At first, you're so focused on not stepping on their feet that you can barely follow their lead, but as you relax and trust their guidance, you begin to move together in harmony. Eventually, the dance becomes so natural that you're not thinking about the steps anymore. You're simply enjoying the movement, the music, and the partnership. This is what happens when healing sleep becomes a natural part of your life. You stop analyzing whether you're surrendering correctly or worrying about whether divine love is really working. You simply rest in the relationship, trust in the partnership, and wake up renewed by love that never fails to meet you in your need. But here's something wonderful that happens as this relationship deepens. Your capacity to receive healing expands. In the beginning, you might experience divine love's touch primarily in the relief of anxiety or the gift of peaceful sleep. But as your heart grows more accustomed to receiving supernatural care, you become open to deeper levels of restoration. You might find that physical ailments begin to improve in ways that surprise your doctors. Relationships that seemed irreparably damaged start to heal through conversations and connections you never could have orchestrated. Financial provision appears from unexpected sources just when you need it most. Opportunities align in ways that seem too perfectly timed to be coincidental. Creative inspiration flows more freely. You discover gifts and talents you didn't know you possessed. Dreams and visions for your future become clearer. You feel called to purposes that ignite passion you haven't felt in years. Your life begins to take on a sense of meaning and direction that goes day. This expansion happens naturally, as divine love finds far beyond just getting through each more and more areas of your life that you're willing to surrender. It's not that perfect love was withholding these blessings until you proved yourself worthy. Rather, your growing trust creates space for healing to reach places in your heart and life that were previously closed off by fear, control, or self-reliance. Think of it like sunlight streaming through a window. The sun doesn't choose to shine more brightly on some days than others, but if the curtains are drawn, the room remains dark despite the brilliance available just outside. As you learn to surrender more areas of your life to divine love, you're essentially opening more curtains, allowing more light to flood into spaces that have been shadowy for far too long. This is why the journey of healing sleep becomes more profound over time rather than less. You're not just experiencing better rest. You're discovering what it means to live in partnership with perfect love, to walk through your days knowing that supernatural wisdom is actively engaged in every detail of your life. As you continue to explore this reality, you'll find that the boundaries between sleeping and waking begin to blur in the most beautiful way. The peace you experience in surrendered sleep starts to characterize your daytime hours as well. The trust you practice at bedtime becomes your default response to unexpected challenges. The love you encounter in the quiet hours of night remains tangibly present throughout the busy hours of day. This transformation doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't require you to be perfect. Some days you'll walk in conscious awareness of divine partnership. Other days you'll forget and try to handle everything in your own strength, only to remember at bedtime that you don't have to carry these burdens alone. Both experiences are part of the journey toward deeper trust and more consistent rest. What matters is not that you never worry or that you surrender perfectly every time. What matters is that you keep returning to divine love, keep releasing your burdens into perfect care, and keep opening your heart to receive the healing that's always available to you. Tonight, as you prepare for sleep, remember that you're not just ending another day. You're beginning an encounter with love that can transform everything about the way you experience rest, face challenges, and navigate the beautiful complexity of being human. You're positioning yourself to receive not just physical renewal, but spiritual restoration that goes far deeper than ordinary sleep could ever provide. The invitation remains simple, but profound. Release what you cannot control, surrender what you cannot solve, and rest in the absolute certainty that perfect love is working on your behalf in ways you cannot see, in timing you cannot rush, but always in perfect alignment with what your heart truly needs. As we prepare to go even deeper into understanding how divine healing meets you in your most vulnerable hours, hold on to this truth. You are not alone in your struggles, you are not forgotten in your pain, and you are not left to figure everything out by yourself. Perfect love is with you through every season, every challenge and every night, ready to meet you with exactly what you need, when you need it most. The beauty of this divine partnership becomes even more evident when you understand the different layers of healing that can unfold during your sleep. Most people think of healing in purely physical terms, the mending of illness, the restoration of energy, the repair of what's broken in the body. But divine healing encompasses so much more than physical restoration alone. Consider the emotional healing that can take place while you rest in surrendered trust. Throughout your waking hours, you encounter situations that wound your heart, interactions that leave you feeling rejected or misunderstood, disappointments that create deep aches in your soul. These emotional injuries often accumulate without you fully realizing their weight until you find yourself inexplicably sad, angry, or emotionally numb. But when you sleep in divine embrace, perfect love begins to tend these emotional wounds with a gentleness that surpasses human understanding. Hurts that have been buried beneath busy schedules and forced smiles finally have space to surface and be healed. Rejection that has created walls around your heart encounters love that breaks through every barrier. Disappointment that has dimmed your hope meets faithfulness that rekindles dreams you thought were lost forever. This emotional healing doesn't always announce itself dramatically. You might simply wake up one morning and realize that a situation that had been causing you deep pain no longer carries the same sting. A relationship that had been a source of constant heartache suddenly feels manageable. A rejection that had been replaying in your mind finally loses its power to define your worth. Sometimes the healing reveals itself through dreams that bring closure to situations you thought would never be resolved. Other times, you'll find yourself able to forgive someone who had hurt you deeply, not through gritted teeth and forced effort, but through a genuine softness that surprises even you. Divine love works in the depths of your emotional world while you sleep, untangling knots of hurt that conscious effort alone could never fully address. Then there's the mental healing that takes place when your mind finally has permission to rest from the constant pressure of trying to figure everything out. Your thoughts, which have been spinning endlessly through the same worries and scenarios, finally have space to settle. The mental exhaustion that comes from overthinking, analyzing and trying to control outcomes through sheer mental effort begins to lift. In this mental rest, divine wisdom can plant new thoughts, fresh perspectives, and creative solutions that your tired mind could never have generated on its own. Problems that seem to have no answers suddenly reveal pathways forward. Decisions that had been paralyzing in their complexity become clear. Confusion that had been clouding your judgment gives way to clarity that feels like morning light breaking through fog. But perhaps most profoundly, there's spiritual healing that touches the deepest part of who you are. This is where divine love addresses not just your symptoms, but your soul's deepest needs. Spiritual wounds that may have been inflicted years or even decades ago finally encounter perfect love's healing touch. Lies you've believed about yourself, about your worth, about your future, are gently replaced with truth that sets you free. This spiritual dimension of healing often reveals itself through a growing sense of purpose and meaning. You begin to understand not just what you're supposed to do, but who you're meant to be. Gifts that have been dormant begin to stir. Callings that were buried beneath survival and obligations start to surface. You discover that your life has significance that goes far beyond just getting through each day. You also begin to experience a deeper connection with divine love that transcends circumstances. Your sense of being loved doesn't fluctuate based on your performance, your achievements, or even your faithfulness in surrender. You discover a love that remains constant regardless of your external situation, a love that sees your potential even when you can't see it yourself. This spiritual healing creates a foundation of security that transforms how you approach everything else in your life. Relationships become less about what you can get and more about what you can give. Work becomes less about proving yourself and more about using your gifts to serve others. Challenges become less about threats to avoid and more about opportunities to grow and demonstrate the strength you've discovered through divine partnership. Now let me share with you something that will deepen your understanding of why nighttime is such a powerful season for this multi-layered healing to occur. During daylight hours, your conscious mind is actively engaged in problem-solving, decision-making, and managing the constant stream of information and demands that fill your waking life. This conscious activity, while necessary, can sometimes create interference with the subtle work of divine love. It's similar to trying to hear a gentle whisper in a room full of loud conversations. The whisper is there, but the surrounding noise makes it difficult to detect. Your conscious thoughts, worries, and mental chatter can sometimes drown out the quiet work of healing that perfect love wants to do in your life. But when you sleep, especially when you sleep in surrendered trust, this mental noise quiets. Your conscious mind steps aside, creating space for divine love to work without interference. In this stillness, healing can reach places that are normally guarded by your analytical mind, touch wounds that your conscious thoughts usually protect, and plant seeds of restoration in soil that daytime distractions often make hard and unreceptive. This is why breakthrough often comes after seasons of surrender, rather than seasons of intense striving. When you've been wrestling with a problem for months, trying every angle you can think of, exhausting every strategy your mind can devise, the solution often emerges during a period of rest and release. Not because divine love was waiting for you to give up, but because your surrender created the quiet space necessary for perfect wisdom to reveal what was there all along. Understanding this principle can dramatically change how you approach persistent challenges in your life. Instead of believing that breakthrough requires more effort, more analysis, more strategic thinking, you begin to recognize that sometimes breakthrough requires more surrender, more trust, more willingness to let divine love work in ways that transcend human understanding. This doesn't mean you become passive or stop taking appropriate action during your waking hours. Rather, you learn to balance human responsibility with divine trust, effort with surrender, working with resting. You do what you can do and release what you cannot, creating a rhythm that allows both your participation and divine intervention to work together harmoniously. Let me paint a picture that illustrates this beautiful partnership. Imagine you're tending a garden. During the day, you plant seeds, water the soil, and pull weeds. This is your part, the conscious, intentional work that gardens require. But you cannot make the seeds grow through effort alone. Growth happens through processes you cannot control or even fully understand. The mysterious work of life itself that occurs largely out of your sleep. Profound work continues in your sight. At night, while new growth pushes to your garden, roots extend deeper into the soil, the surface. Nutrients are absorbed and distributed. Accomplished. The garden is transformed through a time efforts alone could never have morning. Changes have occurred that your day a partnership between your conscious care and the mysterious processes of life. Your healing works in much the same way. During your waking hours, you take steps toward health. You eat well, exercise, seek appropriate medical care, make wise choices. This is your part of the partnership. But the deepest healing happens through processes you cannot control. Divine love working in the depths of your being while you sleep in trust. When you understand this partnership, you stop feeling like healing depends entirely on your knowledge, your effort, your ability to figure everything out. You recognize that your part is important but limited, and that perfect love's part is unlimited but requires your cooperation through surrender and trust. This realization brings tremendous relief to people who have been carrying the weight of believing that their healing, their breakthrough, their transformation depends entirely on their own wisdom and strength. Suddenly, you're not fighting alone anymore. You have a partner whose wisdom exceeds your understanding, whose power surpasses your limitations, whose love encompasses your deepest needs. But let me address a concern that might be arising in your heart. You might be thinking, this sounds beautiful, but what if I've been surrendering for weeks or months and I don't see the dramatic changes you're describing? What if my problems persist despite my efforts to trust? Does that mean I'm doing something wrong, or that divine love isn't really working in my situation? These are deeply honest questions that touch on one of the most challenging aspects of walking in partnership with divine love, the mystery of timing. Perfect love operates on a timeline that often differs from our human expectations and desires. What seems like delay to us may actually be perfect timing from divine perspective. What feels like unanswered prayer may actually be answered in ways we don't yet recognize. Sometimes divine love works immediately, bringing rapid transformation that amazes everyone who witnesses it. Other times, perfect love works gradually, creating changes so subtle that they're only apparent when you look back over months or years and realize how dramatically your life has been transformed. Both approaches reflect divine wisdom, and neither indicates more or less love for you personally. Consider the different ways that physical healing occurs in the natural world. Sometimes a cut heals quickly, new skin forming within days. Other times, a broken bone takes months to fully mend, requiring patience and careful attention throughout the healing process. The difference isn't in the body's commitment to healing, but in the nature of what needs to be restored and the time required for complete restoration. Your soul's healing works similarly. Some wounds are surface level and heal quickly when touched by divine love. Others are deep, complex injuries that require patient, thorough work over extended periods. The depth of healing needed doesn't reflect the severity of your problems or the strength of divine love's commitment to your restoration. It simply reflects the comprehensive nature of what perfect love wants to accomplish in your life. During seasons when healing seems slow or invisible, your faith is not in vain and your surrender is not wasted. Divine love is working at levels you cannot see, laying foundations for transformation that will become evident in perfect timing. Seeds are being planted that will produce fruit in seasons yet to come. Groundwork is being laid for breakthrough that will amaze you when it unfolds. This is why consistency and surrender become so important. Each night that you release your burdens to divine care, each morning that you wake up trusting perfect love's timing, each day that you choose to rest in divine partnership rather than striving in your own strength, you're participating in a process that's much larger than what you can observe in the moment. You're building a relationship with divine love that will sustain you through every season of life. You're developing trust muscles that will serve you well in future challenges. You're creating space in your heart for healing that may unfold gradually, but will ultimately transform every area of your existence. Think of it like learning to play a musical instrument. In the beginning, your efforts produce sounds that barely resemble music. Your fingers feel clumsy, your timing is off, and progress seems impossibly slow. But with consistent practice, gradually, almost imperceptibly, your skills develop. Muscle memory forms. Your ear becomes more sensitive to pitch and rhythm. What once required intense concentration begins to feel natural. Then one day you realize that you're actually making music. The transformation didn't happen overnight, but through countless hours of practice, you've become someone who can create something beautiful. The same principle applies to learning to rest in divine love. Anchoring in trust is building receive healing through surrendered sleep. Each night of surrender is practice. Each morning of spiritual muscle memory. Each day of choosing divine partnership over self-reliance is developing your capacity to receive and recognize perfect love's work in your life. The transformation is happening even when you can't measure it, even when progress feels imperceptible. And here's something beautiful about this process that brings hope during seasons when change seems slow. Divine love is not only working on your current challenges, but also preparing you for your future. Perfect wisdom sees not just what you need now, but what you'll need in the seasons ahead. The healing you receive tonight may be equipping you for opportunities, relationships, or purposes that haven't even entered your awareness yet. Sometimes what feels like delay is actually divine love, preparing multiple elements of your life to align perfectly for your greatest good. Relationships are being prepared, circumstances are being arranged, and your own heart is being developed to receive blessings that wouldn't have been possible in previous seasons. This broader perspective can transform how you experience waiting periods. Instead of feeling frustrated by divine love's timing, you begin to trust that perfect wisdom sees the bigger picture of your life in ways you cannot. Instead of demanding immediate results, you rest in confidence that divine love is orchestrating not just solutions to your current problems, but alignment for your ultimate flourishing. As you embrace this understanding, something wonderful happens to the quality of your surrender. It becomes less desperate and more trusting, less demanding and more receptive, less focused on specific outcomes, and more open to divine love's perfect plan for your life. This shift in the nature of your surrender actually creates more space for healing to work, not less. When your surrender carries the energy of desperation, it can sometimes create its own form of resistance. You're releasing your problems but still trying to control how and when divine love responds. You're trusting but with conditions, surrendering but with expectations about timing and methods. But when your surrender flows from trust in divine love's character rather than desperation about your circumstances, it creates a completely different environment for healing. You're releasing not just your problems, but your agenda about how those problems should be solved. You're surrendering not just your burdens, but your timelines, your methods, and your preconceptions about what healing should look like. This deeper level of surrender opens doorways for divine love to work in ways that exceed your imagination. Perfect love is no longer limited to the solutions you've envisioned or the timeline you've preferred. Divine wisdom has complete freedom to address your needs in ways that serve not just your immediate relief, but your ultimate good. Tonight, as you prepare to enter this sacred space of healing sleep, consider embracing this broader, deeper form of surrender. Release not just your problems, but your expectations about how divine love should solve them. Surrender not just your pain, but your preconceptions about what healing should look like. Love's way of working will exceed anything love will work, but that perfect. Trust not just that perfect you could orchestrate through your own understanding. This level of surrender doesn't require you to stop caring about your needs or to become indifferent to your pain. Rather, it invites you to care so deeply about your ultimate well-being that you're willing to trust divine love's wisdom, even when that wisdom leads down paths you wouldn't have chosen for yourself. As you lie down tonight, remember that you're not just seeking relief from today's burdens. You're positioning yourself to receive transformation that touches every dimension of your being: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. You're opening yourself to healing that addresses not just your symptoms, but your deepest needs, not just your current challenges, but your eternal flourishing. The invitation remains as profound tonight as it was the first time divine love extended it. Come as you are, with all your questions and concerns, with all your hopes and fears, with all your strength and weakness. Perfect love meets you exactly where you are and begins the beautiful work of transformation that will continue not just through this night's sleep, but through every season of the abundant life you're being invited to embrace. The gentle rhythm of your breathing becomes a prayer in itself, each exhale releasing what no longer serves you, each inhale drawing in the peace that your soul has been craving. As you settle into this sacred space between waking and sleeping, something profound begins to shift within you. The walls you've built around your heart to protect yourself from disappointment start to soften. The armor you've worn to shield yourself from further hurt begins to feel less necessary. This softening isn't weakness. It's actually the strongest thing you can do. In a world that tells you to be self-sufficient, to have all the answers, to never let anyone see you struggle, choosing to be vulnerable with divine love is an act of tremendous courage. It's saying, I don't have to be perfect to be loved. I don't have to have everything figured out to be worthy of care. Think about how exhausting it's been to maintain the facade that everything is under control. How draining it's become to pretend that you're not affected by the very real challenges you face every day. How lonely it feels to smile through the pain while your heart is breaking, to appear strong while you're falling apart inside, to give advice to others about problems you haven't been able to solve in your own life. Tonight you can set down that heavy costume of having it all together. You can stop performing strength you don't feel and start receiving the authentic strength that comes through divine connection. You can quit trying to be the person you think you should be and simply be the person you are, beloved, valued, and worthy of supernatural care exactly as you are in this moment. As you allow this truth to settle into your heart, notice how your body begins to respond. Shoulders that have been carrying invisible weight start to drop. Jaw muscles that have been clenched with determination begin to relax. Hands that have been gripping control so tightly slowly open, palms facing upward in a posture of receiving rather than grasping. This physical relaxation isn't separate from spiritual surrender. It's part of it. Your body has been holding the tension of trying to manage what was never meant to be managed by human strength alone. When you release these burdens to divine love, your physical being recognizes the relief and responds accordingly. Muscles relax, breathing deepens, and your entire nervous system shifts from fight or flight mode into rest and restore mode. But here's something beautiful about this process that many people never discover. As your body learns to relax through surrender, it becomes easier for your heart to trust. And as your heart learns to trust through experience, it becomes easier for your body to relax. A beautiful cycle begins to develop, where physical peace and spiritual trust reinforce each other, creating a foundation of rest that grows stronger with each passing night. This is why people who practice surrendered sleep often find that their overall stress levels decrease dramatically, even when their external circumstances haven't changed significantly. They're not just sleeping better, they're living from a place of deeper rest. They're not just managing their anxiety more effectively, they're discovering a peace that doesn't depend on having all their problems solved. Let me share something with you about the nature of divine love that will transform how you understand what's happening as you sleep. Perfect love doesn't just respond to your conscious prayers and deliberate requests. Divine love is also constantly responding to the cries of your heart that you may not even be aware of. The deep longings for purpose, for connection, for healing that exist beneath the surface of your daily awareness. While you sleep, perfect love hears not just what you've asked for, but what your soul truly needs. Divine wisdom sees not just the problems you've identified, but the root issues that have been creating those problems. Perfect love addresses not just your symptoms, but the underlying conditions that have been producing the symptoms. This means that sometimes you'll wake up with solutions to problems you didn't realize you had. You'll find yourself making different choices, having different reactions, pursuing different paths, and wondering where these changes came from. You'll discover strength in areas where you've always felt weak, wisdom in situations where you've historically felt confused, peace in circumstances that used to trigger intense anxiety. These changes aren't random or coincidental. They're evidence of divine love working in the depths of your being while you rested in trust. Perfect love has been addressing issues at their source, healing wounds at their root, and strengthening foundations that needed reinforcement long before the surface problems ever appeared. Consider how different this is from the way we typically approach personal growth and healing during our waking hours. We identify a problem, research solutions, create strategies, and work hard to implement changes. This conscious approach has its place and can be very effective, but it's limited to what we can see, understand, and control. Divine love's approach to healing encompasses all of this, and infinitely more. Perfect love sees connections you've never noticed, understands root causes you've never identified, and has access to resources for healing that exist far beyond human comprehension. When you sleep in surrendered trust, you're giving divine wisdom permission to work at levels and in ways that your conscious mind could never orchestrate. This is why breakthrough often comes suddenly, seemingly out of nowhere, after periods of struggle and effort that seem to produce no results. It's not that your previous efforts were wasted or that divine love was ignoring your needs. Rather, perfect love was working beneath the surface, addressing foundational issues that needed to be resolved before the breakthrough you were seeking could be sustained. Think of it like a tree that's been struggling to grow in soil that lacks essential nutrients. You might water it more, give it more sunlight, even talk to it encouragingly. But until the soil itself is enriched, the tree's growth will remain limited. Divine love works at the soil level of your life, enriching the foundational conditions from which all growth and healing emerge. Sometimes this foundational work takes time to become visible, but when it does, the results are often more comprehensive and lasting than what surface-level solutions could ever provide. Problems don't just get managed, they get resolved. Patterns don't just get interrupted, they get transformed. Wounds don't just get covered, they get healed in ways that leave you stronger than you were before the injury occurred. Now let me address something that might be stirring in your heart as you consider opening yourself more fully to this kind of deep, foundational healing. You might be feeling a mixture of hope and fear. Hope that real transformation is possible, but fear that opening your heart completely might lead to disappointment, or that surrendering control might result in outcomes you don't want. These feelings are completely natural and understandable. If you've been hurt by people who claim to love you, trusting divine love completely can feel risky. If you've experienced disappointment after periods of hope, opening your heart again can feel vulnerable. If you've tried surrendering before without seeing the results you expected, releasing control once more can feel scary. But here's something crucial to understand about divine love that distinguishes it from every human relationship you've ever experienced. Perfect love cannot disappoint you in the way that imperfect human love has. Not because divine love always gives you exactly what you want, when you want it, in the way you want it, but because perfect love always gives you exactly what you need, when you need it, in the way that serves your ultimate good. Human love, no matter how well-intentioned, is limited by human perspective, human resources, and human understanding. Even the people who love you most deeply can sometimes make promises they can't keep, offer solutions that don't work, or provide comfort that falls short of what your heart truly needs. This isn't because they don't care. It's because human love, by its very nature, has limitations. Divine love has no such limitations. Perfect love sees the beginning and the end of your story simultaneously. Divine wisdom understands not just what would make you happy in the moment, but what will contribute to your flourishing throughout eternity. Perfect love has access to resources that transcend natural limitations and can orchestrate circumstances in ways that human effort alone could never accomplish. This doesn't mean divine love's ways will always make sense to your human understanding, or that perfect love's timing will always align with your human preferences. It means that when you surrender to divine love, you're placing your trust in wisdom that exceeds your own, love that surpasses human capacity, and faithfulness that never fails. Understanding this distinction can transform your approach to surrender. You're not just hoping that things will work out somehow. You're placing your confidence in love that has never failed anyone who truly trusted it, wisdom that has never been proven wrong, and faithfulness that spans all of human history and extends into eternity. This kind of trust doesn't develop overnight, especially if you've experienced significant disappointment or betrayal in human relationships. But it grows gradually as you experience divine love's faithfulness in small things and begin to recognize perfect love's consistent character over time. Each night of peaceful sleep after surrendering your worries, each morning of waking with renewed perspective, each day of discovering that you're not walking through challenges alone contributes to this growing trust. As this trust develops, something beautiful begins to happen in your relationship with uncertainty. Instead of feeling threatened by situations you can't control, you begin fullness in new ways. Instead of being parallel to see them as opportunities to experience divine love's faith, eyed by decisions you don't feel equipped to make, you discover that perfect wisdom is available to guide you through every choice. Instead of being overwhelmed by problems that seem too big for you to handle, you remember that you have a partner whose strength is limitless and whose wisdom never fails. This doesn't make challenges disappear, but it transforms how you experience them. You face difficulties with a confidence that doesn't depend on your own ability to resolve them. This transformation in how you relate to uncertainty creates a ripple effect throughout your entire life. Relationships become less about finding people who will never hurt or disappoint you, and more about extending the same grace to others that divine love extends to you. Work becomes less about proving your worth through performance, and more about using your gifts to contribute to something larger than yourself. Money becomes less about security you can create and control, and more about resources you can steward wisely, while trusting divine love for provision. Your future becomes less about plans you can guarantee, and more about adventures you can embrace with confidence that perfect love is orchestrating outcomes beyond your imagination. But perhaps most significantly, your relationship with yourself begins to change. The harsh inner critic that has been driving you to perform for acceptance begins to quiet as you experience unconditional divine love. The fear of making mistakes becomes less paralyzing as you understand that perfect love works through your imperfections, not despite them. The exhaustion of trying to be someone you're not starts to lift as you discover that who you actually are is deeply loved and uniquely valuable. The loneliness of feeling like you have to figure everything out by yourself dissolves as you realize you're in constant partnership with wisdom that never sleeps, love that never grows weary, and faithfulness that never wavers. As these internal shifts occur, people around you begin to notice changes they can't quite identify. You seem more at peace, even when facing the same challenges that used to overwhelm you. You respond to difficult people with patience that surprises even yourself. You make decisions with clarity that seems to come from somewhere deeper than your own understanding. You carry yourself differently, not with the brittle confidence of someone who's trying to convince themselves and others that they have everything under control, but with the quiet assurance of someone who knows they're deeply loved and carefully guided, regardless of circumstances. This transformation doesn't make you perfect or immune to difficulties. You still face real challenges, experience genuine sadness, and encounter situations that test your faith. But you face these experiences from a foundation of rest rather than anxiety, trust rather than fear, connection rather than isolation. Tonight, as you prepare to sleep, you're not just seeking relief from the day's stresses. You're positioning yourself to receive this deeper transformation that touches every aspect of your being. You're opening yourself to healing that goes far beyond symptom management to address the foundational questions of your heart. Am I loved? Am I safe? Do I matter? Is there reason for hope? The answers to these questions aren't found in your circumstances, your achievements, or other people's opinions of you. They're discovered in the encounter with perfect love that meets you in the vulnerability of surrendered sleep. As you rest in divine embrace, your heart learns at the deepest level that you are unconditionally loved, eternally safe, infinitely valuable, and destined for purposes that exceed your current understanding. This knowledge doesn't come through intellectual conviction or emotional manipulation. It emerges through direct experience of divine love's character as you consistently surrender your burdens and consistently discover perfect love's faithfulness in response. Night after night of releasing control and finding that you're held securely, morning after morning of waking renewed rather than depleted, day after day of discovering that you're not facing life's challenges alone. As this experiential knowledge of divine love's character becomes the foundation of your life, everything else finds its proper place. Problems become temporary challenges rather than permanent definitions of your reality. Relationships become opportunities to give and receive love rather than sources of anxiety about acceptance or rejection. Your work becomes an expression of your gifts rather than a desperate attempt to prove your worth. Your future becomes an adventure to anticipate rather than a threat to fear. Your present becomes a gift to savor rather than a burden to endure. But let me share with you one more profound aspect of healing sleep that brings this entire journey into perfect focus. As divine love works in your life through surrendered rest, you don't just become someone who experiences supernatural peace and healing. You become someone who carries that peace and healing into the world around you. Your family begins to experience more harmony because you're no longer bringing the stress of trying to control everyone and everything into your relationships. Your co-workers notice that you handle pressure differently, and your calm presence begins to influence the entire atmosphere of your workplace. Your friends discover that you've become a safe person to share their own struggles with, because you're no longer trying to fix everyone else's problems or prove your wisdom through giving advice. Instead, you've learned to listen with the same compassion that divine love shows you, and to point others toward the same source of healing you've discovered. Your community benefits from your growing peace, because you're no longer driven by anxiety to compete, control, or defend yourself. Instead, you're free to contribute your unique gifts from a place of security rather than insecurity, abundance rather than scarcity, love rather than fear. This ripple effect of healing extends far beyond what you can observe or measure. The peace you discover through surrendered sleep becomes a gift to everyone whose life you touch. The healing you receive becomes a source of healing for others. The transformation you experience becomes an invitation for others to discover their own encounter with divine love. Tonight, as you close your eyes and release the day's burdens, remember that you're participating in something much larger than your own personal healing. You're becoming a conduit through which divine love can flow into a world that desperately needs to know that supernatural peace, healing, and transformation are available to anyone willing to surrender their burdens to perfect care. The invitation remains as beautiful and powerful tonight as it has always been. Come with all your questions and concerns, all your hopes and fears, all your strength and weakness. Perfect love meets you exactly where you are and begins the magnificent work of transformation that will continue not just through this night's rest, but through every day and night of the abundant, purpose-filled life you're being invited to embrace. Your sleep tonight is not just recovery time. It's sacred time when divine love works in the depths of your being, creating changes that will ripple outward through every relationship, every challenge, every opportunity, and every dream that lies ahead. Rest now in the absolute certainty that you are held, you are loved, and you are being prepared for purposes more beautiful than your heart has yet dared to imagine. As your breathing settles into the gentle rhythm that signals your body's preparation for rest, something extraordinary begins to unfold in the quiet sanctuary of your heart. The very act of laying down your head becomes a doorway into dimensions of healing that daylight hours rarely allow you to access. This isn't merely about getting adequate sleep or following proper rest hygiene. This is about understanding that in your most vulnerable state, when all pretenses fall away and your soul lies open like a flower in moonlight, divine love can reach places that have been guarded, protected, and closed off for far too long. Think about the profound vulnerability of sleep itself. In those moments when consciousness fades and your mind releases its vigilant control over every thought and reaction, you become like a child again. Defenseless, trusting, completely dependent on forces beyond your immediate awareness. This state that our culture often views as weakness or inactivity is actually one of the most powerful positions you can assume in relation to supernatural healing. When you were young, before life taught you to be guarded and self-protective, you may have experienced sleep as a natural sanctuary. Children often drift off with complete confidence that they'll be safe through the night, that someone loving is watching over them. That morning will bring new adventures and possibilities. Somewhere along the way, many of us lost that innocent trust. Sleep became fitful, interrupted by worries about tomorrow's responsibilities or replaying today's failures. But tonight you have the opportunity to reclaim that childlike trust, not through naivety or denial of life's real challenges, but through mature understanding of divine love's unchanging character. Perfect love doesn't sleep, doesn't grow weary, doesn't take breaks from caring for you. While your conscious mind rests, divine wisdom remains actively engaged in the details of your existence. Consider how this changes everything about the way you approach bedtime. Instead of viewing those evening hours as the end of productivity, you can recognize them as the beginning of a different kind of work altogether. Not work that requires your effort, but work that requires your surrender. Not labor that exhausts you, but cooperation that restores you. Not striving that leaves you depleted, but resting that leaves you renewed. This shift in understanding transforms your bedroom from merely a place where you collapse at the end of exhausting days into a meeting place with the divine. Your pillow becomes not just a cushion for your head, but an altar where you lay down every burden that's too heavy for human shoulders to carry. Your blankets become not just coverings for warmth, but symbols of divine love, wrapping around every area of your life that needs comfort and protection. But here's something remarkable about divine love's approach to healing that distinguishes it from every human attempt at restoration. When people try to help you heal, they typically address what they can see and understand. They offer advice for problems they recognize, provide comfort for pain they can observe, and suggest solutions based on their own experiences and knowledge. Divine love operates from an entirely different vantage point. Perfect love sees not just your current symptoms, but the root causes that may have been developing for years or even decades. Divine wisdom understands not just what's troubling you now, but what needs to be strengthened in your character to prevent similar troubles in the future. Perfect love addresses not just your immediate needs, but your ultimate destiny and purpose. This comprehensive approach to healing means that sometimes the restoration you receive will exceed anything you dared to ask for or imagine. Problems you've struggled with for years suddenly find resolution. Patterns that have trapped you for decades begin to shift. Relationships that seemed hopeless start to heal. Opportunities that seemed impossible begin to unfold. Other times, the healing you receive may be different from what you expected, but exactly what your soul needed most. You pray for circumstances to change, and instead receive strength to endure them with grace. You ask for problems to disappear, and instead discover wisdom that transforms how you relate to challenges. You request immediate relief, and instead find peace that doesn't depend on external conditions. Both responses reflect perfect love's wisdom and commitment to your highest good. Divine love never responds to your surrender with indifference or neglect. Every prayer whispered in the darkness is heard. Every tear shed in solitude is seen. Every burden released in faith is received by hands infinitely capable of carrying what overwhelms you. As you begin to experience this kind of attentive, responsive divine love through your sleep, something beautiful starts to happen in your relationship with rest itself. Sleep stops being something you do because your body demands it and becomes something you anticipate because your soul craves the connection. Bedtime transforms from an interruption of your busy life into the highlight of your day. You find yourself looking forward to those quiet moments when you can finally be completely honest about your struggles, completely vulnerable about your fears, completely open about your deepest longings. You discover that the darkness isn't something to fear, but a canvas on which divine love paints dreams, visions, and revelations that daylight's distractions often prevent you from receiving. This anticipation of divine encounter changes how you prepare for sleep. Instead of rushing through bedtime routines while your mind races with tomorrow's agenda, you create space for transition. You allow time for your heart to shift from the day's demands to the night's surrender. You prepare yourself not just physically for rest, but spiritually for connection. Some people find that gentle music helps create this sacred atmosphere. Others prefer the complete silence that allows them to hear their own heartbeat and remember that each pulse is sustained by divine love. Some light candles and watch the flames flicker like prayers ascending to heaven. Others simply sit quietly and feel the weight of the day lifting from their shoulders as they consciously release each concern into perfect care. There's no prescribed ritual or required formula for this preparation. What matters is your heart's intention to move from self-reliance to divine dependence, from carrying burdens alone to sharing them with perfect love, from facing the night with anxiety to embracing it with expectation. But let me share something with you about the timing of healing that will help you maintain hope during seasons when change seems slow or invisible. Divine love operates on what we might call eternal time rather than human time. Perfect love sees your entire life story simultaneously, your past, your present, and your future. Divine wisdom understands how each season of your journey connects to every other season in ways that serve your ultimate flourishing. From this eternal perspective, what appears to you as delay might actually be perfect timing. What feels like unanswered prayer might be prayer answered in ways you don't yet recognize. What seems like divine silence might be divine love working so deeply in your life that the changes aren't yet visible on the surface. Consider how growth happens in the natural world. A seed planted in spring doesn't immediately become a mature tree bearing fruit. There are seasons of invisible development, when roots extend deep into soil, when internal structures develop strength, when the foundation is laid for future abundance. During these hidden seasons, it might appear that nothing is happening, but essential work is being accomplished beneath the surface. Your healing often follows similar patterns. Divine love begins by establishing foundations of trust, peace, and identity that can support the transformation you're seeking. This foundational work might not be dramatic or immediately visible, but it's absolutely essential for lasting change. Without these deep roots of spiritual stability, surface changes often prove temporary when life storms arrive. Understanding this process can transform how you experience seasons of apparent delay. Instead of feeling frustrated or forgotten, you can trust that divine love is doing foundational work that will make future breakthrough not only possible, but sustainable. Instead of demanding immediate results, you can rest in confidence that perfect timing serves purposes beyond your current understanding. This doesn't mean you become passive or stop taking appropriate action in your daily life. Rather, you learn to balance human responsibility with divine trust. You do your part while releasing outcomes to perfect wisdom. You take steps where steps are needed, while resting in divine love for results that exceed your ability to control or create. As you develop this balance between action and surrender, working and resting, effort and trust, you begin to experience what might be called effortless effectiveness. Your daily activities become more productive because they're no longer driven by anxiety or desperation. Your relationships improve because you're no longer trying to control other people's responses or earn their approval through performance. Your work becomes more fulfilling because it flows from your authentic gifts rather than from fear of failure or desperate need for validation. Your decisions become clearer because they emerge from the deep peace of divine connection rather than from the chaos of competing pressures and expectations. This effortless effectiveness isn't about becoming lazy or irresponsible. It's about discovering that when your foundation is built on divine love, experienced through surrendered rest, all your other activities become more aligned, more purposeful, more fruitful. You work from rest rather than for rest. You act from peace rather than toward peace. You give from abundance rather than from emptiness. Now let me address something that often concerns people as they begin to experience this kind of transformation through healing sleep. You might wonder if this peace and rest will make you less motivated, less driven, less capable of achieving important goals. Some people fear that if they stop carrying their burdens with such intensity, they'll become complacent or lose their edge in competitive situations. This concern reveals a fundamental misunderstanding about the nature of divine rest and its relationship to human productivity. Surrendering your anxieties to divine love doesn't make you less effective. It makes you more effective by freeing your energy from the exhausting work of worry and control. When you're no longer spending emotional and mental resources on problems you can't solve, you have far more capacity available for activities where your participation actually makes a difference. Think about a river that's flowing freely versus one that's blocked by debris and obstacles. The blocked river might appear to be working harder, churning and fighting against the barriers, but it's actually accomplishing less. The free-flowing river moves with apparent ease, but it's far more powerful in its ability to nourish everything in its path and reach its intended destination. When you learn to rest in divine love, you become like the free-flowing river. Your life moves with greater ease, but also with greater power. You accomplish more with less strain. You influence others more positively with less effort. You navigate challenges more successfully with less stress. This happens because your energy is no longer divided between doing your part and trying to do divine love's part as well. You're no longer exhausting yourself attempting to control outcomes, manage other people's choices, or solve problems that exceed human capacity. Instead, you focus your efforts where they can be most effective while trusting perfect wisdom to handle what only perfect wisdom can handle. People who learn to live from this place of divine rest often discover that they become more successful in worldly terms, not less. Their creativity flows more freely because they're not constrained by fear of failure. Their leadership becomes more effective because it's based on service rather than ego. Their relationships deepen because they're able to give from abundance rather than seeking to receive from emptiness. But more importantly, they discover that their definition of success itself begins to transform. Achievement becomes less about proving their worth and more about using their gifts. Recognition becomes less about feeding their ego and more about expanding their influence for good. Accumulation becomes less about securing their future and more about being equipped to serve others generously. This shift in values isn't something you force or manufacture through willpower. It emerges naturally as you experience divine love's unconditional acceptance and discover that your worth isn't based on your performance. When you know beyond doubt that you're deeply loved regardless of your achievements, you become free to pursue excellence for its own sake, rather than for the approval it might bring. As you continue to experience this transformation through healing sleep, you'll notice that your capacity to receive divine love keeps expanding. In the beginning, you might primarily experience relief from anxiety or the gift of peaceful rest. But as your heart grows accustomed to supernatural care, you become open to deeper dimensions of healing and restoration. Physical ailments that have persisted for years may begin to improve in ways that surprise medical professionals. Emotional wounds that have shaped your personality for decades may start to heal, allowing aspects of your authentic self to emerge that have been buried under layers of protection and performance. Mental patterns that have limited your potential may begin to shift, creating space for creativity, wisdom, and insight that you didn't know you possessed. Spiritual emptiness that has left you feeling disconnected from purpose and meaning may give way to a profound sense of calling and destiny that ignites passion you haven't felt in years. These expansions in healing don't happen because you've earned them, or because you've finally learned to surrender perfectly. They unfold because divine love delights in giving good gifts to beloved children, and your growing trust simply creates more space for perfect love to demonstrate its generous character. As this process continues, you begin to understand that healing sleep isn't just about what happens during the 8 hours when you're unconscious. It's about the foundation of rest that begins to characterize your entire existence. You start living from a place of deep peace that doesn't depend on circumstances. You begin responding to challenges from a foundation of divine connection rather than reacting from a place of isolation and self-protection. This foundational rest transforms not just how you handle difficulties, but how you experience joy, how you pursue dreams, how you love others, and how you understand your place in the larger story of existence. You discover that you were created not just to survive life's challenges, but to thrive in divine partnership, not just to endure until heaven, but to experience heaven's reality breaking into earth through your transformed life. Tonight, as you prepare to enter this sacred space of healing sleep, remember that you're not just seeking a good night's rest. You're positioning yourself to receive transformation that will ripple through every aspect of your existence. You're opening yourself to an encounter with perfect love that will continue to unfold new dimensions of healing, purpose, and joy throughout all the days and nights that lie ahead. The invitation remains as powerful and beautiful as it has always been. Come with complete honesty about your needs, complete vulnerability about your fears, and complete expectation that divine love will meet you exactly where you are and begin the wonderful work of making you exactly who you were created to be. Your heart beats with the rhythm of divine love itself, each pulse a reminder that you are sustained by forces far greater than your own will or effort. As you feel this gentle cadence within your chest, allow it to become a meditation, a prayer without words, a conversation between your deepest self and the love that spoke you into existence. This heartbeat that continues without your conscious control is evidence of the care that never ceases, the attention that never wavers, the commitment that never fails. In this moment of recognition, something shifts in your understanding of what it means to be held. You've spent so much energy trying to hold everything together yourself, relationships, responsibilities, dreams, fears, that you've forgotten what it feels like to be the one who is held. But tonight, As you release your grip on all these concerns, you rediscover the profound relief that comes when someone infinitely more capable takes the weight you've been carrying alone. This holding isn't passive or distant. It's intimate, personal, completely aware of every detail that makes up the complexity of your existence. Divine love knows the specific worries that wake you at 3 in the morning, the particular fears that whisper lies about your future, the exact areas where your heart has been wounded and needs the most gentle care. Perfect love doesn't hold you generically, but specifically, with full knowledge of who you are and what you need. As you rest in this awareness, your breathing naturally begins to synchronize with something larger than yourself. Each breath becomes an act of receiving, drawing in not just oxygen for your lungs, but peace for your spirit, strength for your soul, hope for your heart. Each exhale becomes an offering, releasing not just carbon dioxide, but the accumulated stress, disappointment, and exhaustion that have been weighing you down. This sacred exchange happens without effort on your part. You don't have to concentrate on breathing correctly or worry about whether you're surrendering properly. Your body knows how to receive what it needs, and your spirit, when given permission, knows how to release what no longer serves you. The wisdom built into your very design cooperates with divine love to create exactly the conditions needed for deep restoration. But here's something wonderful that begins to happen. As you settle more deeply into this rhythm of receiving and releasing, the boundary between your individual concerns and divine love's comprehensive care starts to dissolve. You begin to sense that your healing isn't separate from the healing of everyone you love. Your peace contributes to the peace of your family, your community, your world. Your restoration becomes part of a much larger restoration that encompasses everything divine love touches. This understanding lifts your rest beyond personal relief into participation in something cosmic and eternal. As you sleep tonight, you're not just recovering from your own day's challenges. You're contributing to the healing of your relationships, the restoration of your home, the transformation of every environment where your renewed presence will make a difference. Divine love works through your surrendered sleep to create ripples of healing that extend far beyond what you can imagine or measure. Your bedroom becomes a center of supernatural activity, not because of anything you do, but because of what you allow. By creating space for divine love to work without interference from your controlling mind or anxious heart, you become a conduit through which heaven touches earth. Perfect love doesn't need your help to accomplish this work, but your cooperation through surrender creates an opening for miracles that respect the boundaries of human choice and divine love. Think about how this transforms your understanding of rest itself. Sleep stops being downtime between productive activities and becomes one of the most significant contributions you make to the world around you. Your peaceful sleep creates an atmosphere of peace in your home. Your healed heart becomes a source of healing for broken relationships. Your renewed spirit becomes an invitation for others to discover their own encounter with divine restoration. This isn't something you accomplish through effort or technique. It's something that flows naturally from your willingness to receive divine love fully and authentically. When you allow perfect love to meet your deepest needs, you become a person who naturally extends that same love to others. When you experience supernatural peace in your most vulnerable moments, you carry that peace into situations where others desperately need to witness its reality. As you continue to rest in this awareness, notice how your relationship with vulnerability itself begins to change. The exposure you feel in sleep, the helplessness that once seemed frightening, now becomes a doorway to experiences of divine love that your protected, defended daytime self rarely allows. In this state of complete openness, healing can reach places that your self-sufficient mind usually keeps locked away. Childhood wounds that have been shaping your adult reactions for decades finally encounter love gentle enough to heal without creating new trauma. Disappointments that convinced you to lower your expectations meet faithfulness that restores your ability to hope without fear. Betrayals that taught you to trust no one discover love that proves itself trustworthy through consistent care rather than demanding words. This deep healing doesn't happen through analysis or understanding. Though insight may come, it happens through direct experience of love that meets you exactly where your wounds are most tender and demonstrates a different reality than what caused the original pain. Divine love doesn't argue with your fears or try to convince you that you should trust more. Perfect love simply shows up consistently, gently, powerfully, until your heart learns through experience that this love is different from every love that has disappointed you. The transformation that results from this kind of healing changes not just how you feel about past hurts, but how you anticipate future relationships. When you've experienced love that never fails, never manipulates, never withdraws when you're difficult, you become capable of engaging with others from a place of security rather than desperation. You can love without demanding guarantees because you've discovered love that provides the security human relationships alone could never offer. Your capacity to forgive expands naturally because you're no longer trying to protect wounds that are being healed. Your ability to extend grace increases effortlessly because you're receiving grace that exceeds anything you could ever need. Your willingness to be vulnerable grows organically because you've learned that true safety comes not from avoiding all risk, but from resting in love that remains constant, regardless of how others respond to your authenticity. These character changes don't happen overnight, and they don't require you to force yourself to be more loving or forgiving than you feel capable of being. They emerge gradually as divine love does its healing work in the depths of your being. You simply wake up one morning and realize that someone who hurt you no longer has the power to steal your peace. You find yourself responding with patience to situations that used to trigger intense reactivity. You discover that you're able to take risks in relationships because your security comes from an unshakable source. But perhaps most remarkably, you begin to see others through different eyes. The difficult people in your life stop being threats to your well-being and become fellow human beings who are probably carrying wounds similar to ones that divine love has been healing in you. Their defensive behaviors remind you of your own strategies for self-protection rather than triggering your anger or judgment. Their desperate attempts to control outcomes mirror the controlling patterns that divine love has been gently transforming in your own life. This shift in perspective doesn't make you naive about the reality of harmful behavior or remove the need for appropriate boundaries. Rather, it allows you to maintain your own spiritual health while responding to others with the same compassion that divine love shows you. You can protect yourself when necessary without demonizing people who hurt you. You can maintain standards without becoming harsh or unforgiving toward those who fall short of your expectations. As you rest tonight in the awareness of divine love's healing presence, allow your heart to open not just to receiving what you need, but to becoming someone who naturally gives what others need. Let the peace that flows into your spirit during these quiet hours prepare you to be a person of peace in tomorrow's challenges. Allow the healing that touches your wounds to ready you to be a source of healing for others who are hurting in similar ways. The love that meets you in your vulnerability tonight will strengthen you to love others courageously tomorrow. The grace that covers your imperfections as you sleep will enable you to extend grace generously when you wake. The patience that divine love shows with your slow progress will develop into patience you can offer to others who are also growing at their own pace. This transformation happens not through trying harder to be a better person, but through allowing divine love to so thoroughly saturate your being that love becomes your natural response rather than something you have to work up or manufacture. When your heart is filled to overflowing with perfect love, loving others becomes as natural as breathing. When you're secure in divine acceptance, accepting others becomes effortless. When you're established in supernatural peace, being a peacemaker becomes your authentic expression rather than a role you perform. Tonight, as divine love works in the depths of your being, trust that every area of healing you receive is preparing you not just for your own flourishing, but for service to others who need to encounter the same love that's transforming you. Your healed heart becomes healing for broken hearts. Your renewed spirit becomes renewal for discouraged spirits. Your transformed life becomes an invitation for others to discover their own transformation through divine love. Rest now in the beautiful certainty that as you sleep, perfect love is not only meeting your deepest needs, but preparing you for purposes more wonderful than your heart has yet imagined. Every breath draws you deeper into divine embrace. Every heartbeat connects you more fully to eternal love. Every moment of surrender creates more space for the miraculous work that will continue not just through this night, but through all the days and nights of the abundant life you're being invited to embrace. The healing that embraces you now in sleep will carry you through tomorrow's awakening and into a future, bright with possibilities you cannot yet see, but can trust divine love to unfold in perfect timing and perfect ways. In this profound stillness that settles over you like the gentlest of blankets, something extraordinary begins to happen that transcends the ordinary boundaries of night and day. The very air around you seems to shimmer with possibility, charged with the presence of love that has been waiting patiently for this moment when your defenses finally lower and your heart becomes completely receptive to the supernatural work that can only unfold in such sacred vulnerability. As you lie here, feeling the weight of your body sinking deeper into the mattress, there's a recognition that this sinking isn't just physical relaxation. It's a spiritual descent into depths of divine love that most people never discover because they never learn to release control completely enough to reach these hidden places of healing. Your spirit is being drawn into communion with perfect love in ways that your analytical mind could never orchestrate or understand. Feel how your very bones seem to be releasing tension they've held for months, perhaps years. This isn't merely muscular relaxation from a long day's work. This is your entire being responding to the presence of love that penetrates every cell, every fiber, every hidden corner of your existence where stress and worry have taken up residence. Divine love doesn't just touch the surface of your concerns, it reaches into the molecular level of your being, bringing restoration that medical science is only beginning to glimpse. The darkness that surrounds you is no longer empty space between day and night. It has become a canvas on which divine love paints visions of hope, dreams of possibility, and revelations of truth that daylight's distractions often prevent you from receiving. In this holy darkness, your spiritual eyes begin to open in ways they rarely can when natural light demands their attention. You start to see with the vision of your heart, rather than just the sight of your eyes. Listen carefully to the silence that envelops you. It's not the absence of sound, but the presence of peace so complete that it drowns out every voice of fear, doubt, and anxiety that has been competing for your attention. This silence speaks more clearly than any words could communicate the depth of divine love's commitment to your well-being. In this quietness, you can finally hear the gentle whisper of perfect love that has been calling your name through every season of struggle and celebration. Your breathing has found a rhythm now that seems to match something eternal, something that existed before you were born and will continue long after your earthly journey is complete. Each breath connects you to the very source of life itself, reminding you that the same power that breathes life into your lungs every moment is actively engaged in breathing new life into every area of your existence that has grown weary or stagnant. But notice how this breathing has become more than just the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. It's become a conversation, a communion, a constant receiving and offering that happens at levels deeper than consciousness usually allows. You're receiving not just air, but strength. Not just oxygen, but hope. Not just the elements your body needs to survive, but the spiritual nourishment your soul needs to thrive. As this sacred exchange continues, you begin to understand that healing doesn't always announce itself with dramatic manifestations. Sometimes the most profound transformation happens so gently that you barely notice it occurring. Like the way morning light gradually dispels darkness without any sudden flash or dramatic moment, divine love often works in your life with such perfect timing and natural flow that the changes feel like they've always been meant to be. The worries that seemed so urgent just hours ago are beginning to lose their grip on your consciousness. Not because they've been forgotten or denied, but because they're being held by hands infinitely more capable than yours. You're discovering that releasing control doesn't mean abandoning responsibility. It means recognizing the difference between your part and divine love's part in the solutions your life needs. Feel how your heart rate has settled into a pace that speaks of deep security rather than alert vigilance. This isn't the exhausted collapse that sometimes masquerades as rest, but the genuine peace that comes when you know beyond doubt that you are completely safe, completely loved, completely cared for by wisdom that never sleeps and strength that never fails. Your mind, which has been racing through scenarios and solutions all day, is finally giving itself permission to be still. Not the forced stillness that comes from trying not to think, but the natural quietness that emerges when you realize that some of life's most important work happens not through mental effort, but through spiritual surrender. In this mental stillness, divine wisdom has space to plant thoughts and insights that your busy mind rarely has room to receive. But here's something beautiful about this quietness that many people never discover. It's not empty or void. It's full of potential, full of love, full of possibilities that are being prepared even as you rest. While your conscious mind steps aside, perfect love is orchestrating circumstances, preparing hearts, opening doors, and creating pathways for breakthrough that your strategic thinking could never devise. The temperature of the air around you seems to carry more than just physical comfort. There's a warmth here that speaks of divine embrace, a gentleness that communicates perfect love's tender care for every detail of your existence. Even the way the sheets rest against your skin becomes a reminder that you are held, supported, surrounded by love that pays attention to your smallest needs and your greatest dreams with equal devotion. As you sink deeper into this experience, you begin to recognize that your bedroom has been transformed into something sacred, not through any ritual or ceremony you've performed, but simply through your willingness to meet divine love with an open heart in this vulnerable space. The walls that normally just provide privacy have become boundaries of sanctuary. The ceiling that usually just keeps out weather has become a canopy of divine protection. Your pillow cradles not just your head, but every thought that has been troubling you. The mattress supports not just your body, but every burden you've been carrying. The blankets cover not just your physical form, but every area of your life that needs the warmth of divine love's attention. Everything in this space has been consecrated by your surrender and divine love's response to that surrender. Feel how even your pulse seems to be synchronized with something larger than your individual heartbeat. It's as if your heart has found its rhythm in the heartbeat of divine love itself, creating a harmony that speaks of perfect unity between your deepest needs and perfect love's abundant provision. This synchronization doesn't require your effort or concentration. It happens naturally when you release resistance and allow divine love to set the pace of your rest. The healing that flows through you now reaches into memories you'd forgotten were causing you pain. Moments of rejection that shaped how you view yourself are being touched by acceptance so complete that their power to define you begins to dissolve. Experiences of failure that convinced you to lower your expectations are meeting success that has nothing to do with your performance and everything to do with divine love's commitment to your flourishing. But notice how this healing doesn't feel forced or violent. There's no wrestling with demons, no dramatic confrontation with your past. Instead, there's a gentle washing, a tender cleansing, a loving restoration that feels like coming home to yourself for the first time in years. Divine love doesn't heal your wounds by fighting them, but by overwhelming them with such complete love that they lose their power to hurt you. Your muscles continue to release tension you didn't even realize they were holding. Shoulders that have been braced for impact finally trust that they can lower their defenses. Jaw muscles that have been clenched with determination discover that they can soften without losing strength. Hands that have been gripping control so tightly slowly open like flowers turning toward sunlight, ready to receive rather than grasp. This physical relaxation mirrors something happening at much deeper levels. Emotional walls that have protected your heart from further hurt are being lovingly dismantled, not to leave you vulnerable to more pain, but to allow healing love to reach places that have been isolated and defended for too long. Mental barriers that have limited your ability to believe in good outcomes are being gently dissolved by divine love's demonstration of faithfulness. The time that passes as you rest here seems to operate by different rules than daytime hours. Minutes feel like they contain more healing than weeks of conscious effort could produce. Moments stretch to accommodate profound transformations that usually require months or years to develop. Divine love works outside the constraints of linear time, accomplishing in minutes what human effort might never fully achieve. As this timeless healing continues, you begin to sense that you're not just receiving restoration for yourself alone. The peace that flows into your spirit is being prepared to flow through you into relationships that have been strained by your stress and worry. The healing that touches your heart is being ready to bring healing to others who will encounter your transformed presence in days to come. The strength that builds in your spirit as you rest will emerge tomorrow as patience with difficult people, wisdom in challenging situations, and grace for circumstances that would have previously overwhelmed you. Divine love uses your surrendered sleep not just to restore what has been depleted, but to prepare you for purposes and opportunities that await your renewed engagement with life. Your breathing deepens even further now, each breath seeming to draw you into closer communion with the source of all healing, all peace, all love. You're discovering that rest isn't just the absence of activity, but the presence of divine love so complete that it provides everything your spirit needs to be fully restored and prepared for whatever tomorrow may bring. The night air itself seems to carry prayers, not just your own but the prayers of everyone who has ever sought divine love's healing touch in the vulnerability of sleep. You're joining a communion of hearts that spans centuries, all finding in surrendered rest the healing that daylight's distractions often prevent them from receiving. Your healing becomes part of a great tapestry of restoration that divine love has been weaving throughout human history. Feel how your entire being is being saturated with love so perfect that it transforms everything it touches. Fears that have controlled your decisions for years are dissolving like shadows when light appears. Doubts that have whispered lies about your worth are being silenced by truth that speaks directly to your heart. Wounds that have ached for healing are finally finding the perfect balm that brings not just relief, but complete restoration. The darkness around you pulses with divine presence so tangible that you can almost reach out and touch it. This isn't the darkness of absence, but the darkness of intimate embrace, like being held close by love so vast that it encompasses everything you can see and infinitely more than you cannot see. In this sacred darkness, you're safe to be completely vulnerable, completely honest, completely yourself, without fear of judgment or rejection. Your heart continues to beat with increasing peace, each pulse now carrying healing into every area of your life that needs divine love's touch. Blood flows through your veins carrying not just nutrients for your body, but restoration for your soul. Every circulation brings deeper healing, greater peace, stronger connection to the love that will never leave you or forsake you. As you rest here in this holy space, between consciousness and sleep, between earth and heaven, between your limited understanding and divine love's infinite wisdom, know that you are exactly where you need to be, receiving exactly what you need to receive, being prepared for exactly the future that divine love has planned for you. Perfect love makes no mistakes in its timing, its methods, or its purposes for your life. The healing that embraces you now in sleep is preparing you for an awakening more beautiful than any you've yet experienced. Not just waking up tomorrow morning, but awakening to possibilities you've never dared to dream, purposes you've never imagined, love beyond anything you've yet allowed yourself to hope for. Divine love's work in your life through this sacred rest is just the beginning of transformations that will continue to unfold through all the days and nights ahead. Rest now in the profound understanding that every moment of this sacred surrender creates ripples of transformation that extend far beyond what you can see or comprehend. As your consciousness gently releases its grip on the day's concerns, something magnificent unfolds in the spiritual realm, where divine love operates with perfect freedom and unlimited power. The very act of your letting go becomes an invitation for supernatural intervention in ways your controlling mind could never orchestrate. While you rest, divine wisdom begins to weave together circumstances in your life that seemed completely unconnected. People you've never met are being prepared to cross your path with exactly the help you need. Opportunities that don't yet exist are being created specifically for the gifts you carry. Solutions to problems you haven't even encountered are being arranged in perfect timing. This isn't wishful thinking or spiritual fantasy. This is how divine love actually operates when given permission through your complete surrender. Perfect love sees the intricate connections between every aspect of your existence and works simultaneously on multiple levels to create the conditions for your greatest flourishing. What appears random to human perspective reveals itself as perfectly orchestrated when viewed from divine wisdom's vantage point. Feel how your spirit begins to expand beyond the confines of your physical body, connecting with something infinite and eternal that has always been your true home. This expansion isn't an escape from reality, but an entrance into the deepest reality of who you are and why you exist. You're discovering that your individual life is part of a much larger story of love, redemption, and restoration that spans all of creation. Tonight, as you close your eyes and allow divine love to meet you in this sacred vulnerability, remember that you're not just ending another day. You're beginning a journey into healing that will transform not only your sleep, but every waking moment that follows. The peace you receive in these quiet hours will become the foundation from which you face tomorrow's challenges. The restoration that flows through your spirit as you rest will emerge as renewed strength, deeper wisdom, and unshakable hope. Rest now, knowing that perfect love never sleeps, never grows weary, and will work on your behalf through every hour of darkness until morning's light reveals the beautiful work that has been accomplished in your surrendered heart.